Is a familiar passage. Jeremiah chapter 1 is a familiar passage. The passage perhaps we have read before. It's the passage perhaps we've had other men and women of God preach from. And so when I committed myself to coming back and share with you, this is the passage I felt in my heart I should share with you. So I'm going to read the whole chapter and then I'll share a few thoughts that come to mind as we move along. Jeremiah chapter 1, reading from verse 1. And I'm reading from the New International Version of the Bible. This is what this version says. The words of Jeremiah, son of Hilkiah, one of the priests at Anathoth, in the territory of Benjamin. The word of the Lord came to him in the 13th year of the reign of Josiah, son of Amon, king of Judah, and through the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, down to the 5th month of the 11th year of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, king of Judah. When the people of Jerusalem went into exile, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am too young. But the Lord said to me, Do not say, I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms, to uproot and to tear down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. The word of the Lord came to me. What do you see, Jeremiah? I see the branch of an almond tree, I replied. The Lord said to me, You have seen correctly, for I am watching to see that my word is fulfilled. The word of the Lord came to me again. What do you see? I see a pot that is boiling. I answered, It is tilting towards us from the north. The Lord said to me, From the north, disaster will be poured out on all who live in the land. I am about to summon all the peoples of the northern kingdoms, declares the Lord. Their kings will come and set up their thrones in the entrance of the gates of Jerusalem. They will come against all her surrounding walls and against all the towns of Judah. I will pronounce my judgments on my people because of their wickedness in forsaking me, in burning incense to other gods, and in worshiping what their hands have made. Get rid, get, your, get yourself ready. Stand up and say to them, whatever I command you. Do not be terrified by them, or I will terrify you before them. Today I have made you a fortified city, an, an iron pillar, and a bronze wall to stand against the whole land, against the kings of Judah. It is officials, it is priests, and the people of the land. They will fight against you, but will not overcome you, for I am with you, and will rescue you, declares the Lord. So that's the entire chapter for Jeremiah chapter 1. The first thing, if you're writing, the first thing um, that I see from this passage, it is revealed that before you and I were formed in our mother's wombs, God knew us. So before there was any anything that slightly would point to our conception, scripture in this particular passage, it is revealed that God knew us. So that's point number one. We were known by God before we were formed in our mother's womb. Point number two, he says, before you were born, I set you apart. So the second point here from this passage is, before you and I were born, we were set apart. Set apart means basically you were separated. You are separated from your tribe, you are separated from your clan, you are separated from your peers, sometimes even from your siblings. You were set apart. And then point number three says, I appointed you as a prophet. Now, this is God telling Jeremiah. In your case, you may have been appointed to be something else. For Jeremiah, he was appointed to be a prophet. For you, you may have been appointed to be something else. Now, those of you who've been Christians for some time, you will agree with me that many at times when you hear the phrase, God called you, the first thing that comes to mind is ministry. Um, especially if most of the time when we hear God called you, the first thing that comes to mind is ministry, and we think ministry is within the church walls. Maybe you are in the music ministry, maybe you're on the pulpit teaching, preaching, praying for the sick, and all kinds of things. But I want us to broaden our scope of what ministry is. I strongly believe that God calls individuals in in different aspects of life. For instance, teachers, like teachers who teach in schools or universities, they are individuals who God has specifically called into that field. Now, there are those who have been pushed into it based on either circumstances or different reasons. But there are those who strongly believe that they are into it because they feel that is where God has called them to be. Same thing with medicine. There are those who feel that God has called them to be doctors or nurses. Of course, there are those who are into it maybe because it's a good paying job. But then you encounter individuals who will tell you that, you know what? This is exactly what God has called me into doing. And of course, a few of us, our calling is in the ministry where you find yourself teaching and preaching, praying for individuals for various reasons. And so, going back to this passage, when you hear I appointed you, so first we are informed that God knew us before we were formed. Secondly, before we were born, he had separated you. So now the task we have, you and I, is to figure out and find out what is it that I was appointed to do. Having now known that God knew me before I was formed. And then secondly, before I was born, he had already set me apart. So the question is, what is it that I was set apart to do? What is it that I was set apart and appointed to do? That is the task of each of us. Now, to some of us, God is gracious and kind. He may just initiate that conversation with you, like in my case, when I shared briefly my testimony with those of you who are on the platform uh, on Monday when I shared my testimony. The conversation of the calling of God upon my life was initiated by God. I did not initiate it. Although I was a Christian. I was a Christian because I came to know Christ when I was a young boy. I lived with a grandma who was a Christian but also was an evangelist. Uh, she was the mother of my mother. So my mother had taken me to live, or rather to spend a holiday with her. And so my grandma used that opportunity to preach to me and my other siblings. And at a young age, I think I was around 8, 9. At a young age, I gave my life to Christ. And then I remember Kevin asking me later on when I was giving my testimony that at what age were you, uh, was this, what age did this happen?
And
So
brother,
from 8.
but please don't find it difficult to repeat that testimony, that vision you had, because
Yeah.
now we are recording it. Because somebody will be listening to this and they'll be like, okay, what was it that he's talking
Okay.
about? So
I'll
you see
definitely
that?
start.
So please take your
Yeah.
time. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So from 8 and then fast forward now to when I'm about 20, when now God initiates that conversation. Before I go into the details of what I shared, let me make this point that the task of finding out why you were set apart and what you were appointed to do is your task. Now, that task, the conversation you can either initiate that conversation with God, or as you seek God, God may initiate that conversation with you, and then He will begin to slowly reveal what He has appointed you to do. And it is not complicated. A lot of times we complicate it. We are waiting for goosebumps. We are waiting for some winds to blow and to have that spatial visitation. Sometimes, yes, sometimes it may happen that way, but not all the time. And so I wanted to make that point that we are all set apart to do something. In my case, as you heard my testimony, which I'm going to repeat, is that at this time, I am about 20 years of age. I'm at 20, you're trying to figure out what is it that you want to be, what is it that you want to do in life. Of course, you're listening to the people who have raised you. In my case, it was my guardians because by this time, my parents had passed on. So I was living and being raised by the help of relatives. So relatives are suggesting, I think you can do this, I think you can be this, I think you can go this direction. And so as a young man, you are conflicted with different things. If honestly somebody had asked me what I wanted to be, I didn't know. I didn't know what I wanted to be. But what the conflict was, okay, this one is suggesting this one is suggesting this one. So you have different, like 4 options, and you're trying to figure out, okay, which option do I go with? Because I can't do all 4 things. And as a Christian, I said, Lord, I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know what I want to be. I don't know where I want to go. It is from, perhaps I would say, that prayer and desire that God appears to me in a vision. And the first vision I had was I was in my bedroom. I had just sat on the bed, getting ready to sleep, and the wall of one of the bedrooms turned into a huge television screen. And on this screen, I see myself preaching. It was like a flash. It wasn't like long, the section of me seeing myself preaching. It was like a small section. So I see myself preaching. And when I was done preaching, I saw myself pray for 3 categories of people. The first person I prayed for was a woman who had an infirmity. Her back was kind of bent and she couldn't walk straight. So she walked, you know, as she was walking while she was bent. So when I prayed for her, her back straightened and she was able to walk straight. So that was the first thing I saw doing. The second person I prayed for was a man. This man was insane. He was mad. Um, and when I was praying for him, demons manifested and I cast the demons out and the man gained his sanity back. And then the third person or individual I prayed for was a boy, was a boy of about 5 or 6 years. One of his legs was crippled. When I prayed for him, his leg was straightened and he was able to walk again. And then as soon as I finished praying for these 3 individuals, I felt being carried away from now the room. So I was carried away. People, I believe it were angels of God. They lifted me out of my room and they carried me. Like when you're being carried, you feel, there's that feeling, that somebody's carrying you and is taking you somewhere. But I had no idea where they were taking me. So they carried me out of my room and they took me to a mountain and they left me there. So while I was there on top of the mountain, wondering what was going to happen next, all this is in the vision. I, from a distance, I saw someone walk towards where I was. I could not make the face of who it was from a distance, but as walked closer, it will become clearer and clearer and clearer. Now, from a distance, it was like a shining star. It was like a shining star from a distance. And all I saw from afar, it was a star, but very bright, very bright star. As the star moved closer to where I was, now the image of a man I believe to be Jesus uh, emerged from that bright star as it came closer. And then he spoke to me. The first thing he said to me was, I love you. That was the first thing he said to me, I love you. And then the second thing he said to me was, what you have had said about me is true and is real. And uh, when he finished saying those two statements, I was back in my room, in the bedroom where I was. I came back into the room and I was speaking in tongues because I found myself speaking in other tongues when I came back in my room. And so I rested and then kind of decided to uh, go back to sleep. Then another vision. I had now a second vision. So this second vision, I was at the school, the high school I was attending at the time. And I walked from the classroom I was in and walked outside and went at the back of the school where there was a stadium, or rather football field. And when I got there, to my surprise, there were so many people. I was not even aware that they were there, but they were there. So at the extreme end, there was someone preaching, a person I knew. So while he was preaching, so I'm at the very back of the football field, like very back. You could even hardly hear what the other man was saying who was on the platform. So I was trying to get to listen and to hear what he was saying. Then a motorcycle came from heaven, landed on the platform. He sat on it and went back to heaven. So where I was standing, I said, he has not finished preaching and he's gone. When I said that, the people, because they were facing the front, they turned and faced where I was. And when they turned and faced where I was, a voice said to me, all these people are waiting for you. All these people are waiting for your obedience. And so that was the vision I had that day. And as I continued to wait on God, I had joined a church, of course, at the time. I had joined a church, and I was part of that church, and I was a member of that church. And so, at the time I received these visions, it did not make sense, but they were as real as I'm sharing them today, because they've never left me. And as I continued to be involved in the life of the church I was part of then, I became clearer and clearer that I had been set apart for that purpose. It was later on through prophecy that I came to find out that indeed God had called me into the ministry of an apostle. And and when it was prophesied upon me that God has called you as an apostle, I wanted to know, okay, I read in the Bible about apostles. Apostle Paul was sent to the Gentiles. Apostle Peter and his other uh, colleagues, they were sent to the Jews. What am I sent to? I've seen a vision that I've been sent to a group of people, but what kind of people am I being sent to? And so I continued to pray. So later on, probably several months had passed. Uh, the Lord spoke to me directly and said, I have called you as an apostle to my people. And 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 he elaborated more to me what that meant. He said, I'm sending you to my people to help them find what they have lost and get it back. Sending you to my people to bring them back to the knowledge of the cross. And so I got a picture of exactly what God had set me apart for. And obviously, from that time, opportunities for me to start preaching and teaching started opening up within the church I was attending, but then also other churches within the city, and and continued from there. Now, sometimes when these things are revealed to us, we tend to be afraid. And we see it in this passage. The excuse Jeremiah is giving to God is, I'm too young. In my case, I could have told God, I've not even, by this time, I've not read even a lot of, I'd not read the Bible. These visions are happening to me, or I'm having these visions. I had read small portions of the Bible. I'd not read a bigger portion of the Bible. So I didn't have knowledge of what is in the Bible. And so I could have said, you know what, Lord, I even don't know, I've never read the whole Bible. I even never preached. In that case, I would have said, I've never preached. So what am I going to preach? I could have said, come up with several reasons. And we see that God is reassuring Jeremiah in this passage that I'll put words in your mouth. He even tested him and said, okay, what do you see? Because now he has called him to a prophet. Prophets are able to see. So he said, what do you see? He tests him the second time, what do you see? And he said, you have seen correctly. And so you step out by faith and you start doing all things. Would they look perfect the first time you step out? No. But as you continue to believe and to trust God that this is what God has called you to do, it begins to have shape and form to something that you are able to recognize and do. And so my encouragement to all of you is that in knowing that you've been set apart, as you seek the Lord to figure out exactly what is it that he has appointed you to do, is that don't allow fear to stop you from stepping out. And then don't allow, because when you read this passage, he talks about how uh, kingdoms and nations around Jerusalem, they will come and destroy the walls. In your case, you'll encounter obstacles, various kinds of encounters. And those encounters, God will allow them to come. In my case, I shared with you, going back to what I shared, is that in my case, when I shared what I felt the direction God wanted me to do, because now, remember, I told you the individuals who were helping raising me had different suggestions that we think you can do this, we think you can do this, we think you can do this. So now they were seeing that I've not taken any steps towards whatever they have suggested. So I said, all those things are good things for me to do, but this is the thing I want to do, which created friction between me and my relatives, my uncles and aunties. They said, so you want to be a preacher? you don't want to do these other things that we're asking you to do, so you just want to be a preacher. I said, yes, that's what I want to do. I didn't tell them the details of the vision. I just told them I want to be a preacher, and that's what I'm going to pursue. And so from that time on, they said, you are wasting our time, you're wasting our money. We thought we were educating you to become a a teacher, to become a doctor, to become this, and now you're talking about becoming a preacher. And obviously at that time, this is in late 90s, early 2000s. The preachers we know today that are wealthy, not many preachers were wealthy and rich at the time, because being a pastor at the time, it was known as a poor job. And so many were discouraging going into being pastors because pastors were known to be poor. Unlike today, where the saying has reversed. Now they say, oh, if you tell somebody I'm a pastor, oh, okay, you guys are the ones who are now getting the money, you know. But then it was, you're wasting time, you're wasting this and that. So I have friction with my relatives. And so I became the reference whenever conversations with their children. Don't be like him who just wants to spend his time praying and preaching. Don't be like him. So I was a bad reference. So in that process, I became discouraged. I was convinced that these dreams were of the Lord. But here I am being discouraged by what I'm hearing from people who should be encouraging me. So at that point, I left home. I woke up one day, I just got my clothes, and I left. I came into the city, and I had found out that some churches, open all night. So I would spend my nights different churches, and then I'd spend my days preaching whenever there was an opportunity. If there was no opportunity, then I was in the church somewhere, praying, resting, doing my thing. And I was in that period for, I would say, for about 3 years. And then one, and my prayer during those 3 years was, God, you called me. If indeed you called me, then make a way for me, a way that is going to point me to actually doing exactly what you have indeed called me to do. And so I remember towards the end of that third year, I remember I'd spent the entire weekend locked up in uh, a room that belonged to the church I was attending. I went in like around Friday night. So I was there the whole night of Friday, the whole day of Saturday, the whole night of Saturday, and then was there the whole day of Sunday. I did not even go to church that day. Was there the whole day of Sunday, and then the whole night of Sunday. So I was basically there for about 3 days and 3 nights. And then in the morning of Monday, uh, one of the church members had come to the church, rather to the office, and so I was at the church office, and he started prophesying to me that, you know what, God has heard your prayer, and the way He's answered your prayer, this is what He's going to do. He is going to take you away from Uganda. Is going to take you away from your family, from your siblings, from your friends, from anything and everything that you know. And he is going to take you to a far distant land where you do not know anyone and where no one knows you. And that's how God has answered your prayer. This is a prophecy I'm receiving Monday morning after being uh, in that room for 3 days and for 3 nights. Now, God says that to me, but I don't know how it's going to happen. A week later, after receiving that prophecy, a week later, a man, unbeliever, he's not a Christian, he comes to church saying, I'm looking for a man I want to employ to give a job. So I had stepped out of the church when that man came. So the people he approached and he met, they said, we know someone, we will get back to you. They were in need of jobs. But when that happened, the person they thought of was me. So they looked for me. They started looking for me. I said, where are you? You know? So when I showed you, I said, we were looking for you. There's a man who came here looking for a job. And the moment he said he wants to employ somebody, the person we thought of is you. But I said, you also need jobs, right? Why are you thinking of me? So it looks like this is for you. We don't know. We don't know why, but we think this is for you. So I said, okay, let's see what job it is. So I asked, did he say what job it was? So they explained to me what the job was. So I told them, that's not my job. Because if I take this job, what is going to happen, I will have less time seeking God. I will have less time preaching and doing the things that now I've been doing for the last couple of years. So that job is not for me. I'll pass. I said, okay. They said, okay. They didn't push me. They didn't pressure me into it. I and so life continued. And either a week or 2 weeks later, I was walking on the streets going to church. I meet an old friend with whom I had attended school with. And uh, because we had not seen each other for some time. So we met and he uh, he says, how are you? I said, I'm good. What are you up to? I said, well, I'm here waiting on God. And he told me what he was doing and where he was. And so as we were about to separate, he says, he prophesies to me and says, you were offered a job and you turned it down. But the Lord says, it is him who has given you that job. So go ahead and take it. And he left. So I reached out to the other individuals who had told me about the job. I asked them, is the job still available? They said, we don't know because we haven't seen the guy uh, again since that time. So we don't know, but we can reach out to him and see if the job is still available. And uh, and we did. We reached out to him and he said, yeah, it was available. So he interviewed me and he gave me the job. And I started working for him as my fears were. My fears were I was going to my fear to reject the job was to it would take away the time I'm spending in God's presence, praying and preaching. And indeed it was true. The moment I accepted the job, basically I had less opportunities to go out there to preach because now I had a job that I needed to report to. Um, The time I spent praying, of course, was reduced, which was my fear. But the assurance from what I got, the prophecy I got from my friend, I knew that I am in God's plan and purpose, even though the opportunities are not there, even though my time in praying was reduced. I knew that our God is with me, and did that for 3 years. About my third year, I would say I did that for 5 years. But in my third year of working for this particular gentleman, and remember, this man is not saved. He's not even a Christian. Does not go to church. Does no. Is an unbeliever. Before I forget, when I accepted the job offer, he gave me accommodation. He rented for me. Basically, was paying for my rent. He rented me a self-contained two-bedroom home. Had 2 bedrooms, had a kitchen, had a bathroom, self-contained, smaller for a single person like me at the time, and he was paying everything. I didn't have to worry about rent. He even would give me money. He would give me a salary, and on top of my salary, he would pay for my rent, my bills, all the bills, and plus money for food. He said, "I don't want you to use your money to buy food or anything." Uh, So that's how I got out of the streets, because someone may ask, so how did you leave the streets? That's how I left the streets. And now I was in a home that was being paid for by this man who was employing me. Going back to where I was, to uh, my third year of the job, he always bought newspapers. I was reading newspaper, and there was this newspaper that said, do you want to live and work in America? Contact me, and there was an email address. And so I did email him and said, tell me more about this. And he responded by asking, more information, my PO box address, full name, phone number, uh, and I gave those things to him, not knowing that there was this program called the Green Card Lottery. When I sent him that information, basically he just entered the information I gave him into the Green Card Lottery. And I didn't hear from him after my conversation with him at the time we were doing all that for about a year. It was 1 year later. I'm now in my fourth year of employment with this man. 1 year later, that I got an envelope with a letter saying, "Congratulations, we entered you through this program, and you were selected for further review. Fill out these forms and send them back to this address," which I did. And then the process of me coming here started. Um, went on until my fifth year of employment with this man. So when everything had been processed and finalized and I had my visa, at that point, I went ahead and told my boss, I said, hey, I have this amazing opportunity to leave. Now, remember, when the prophecy, after my 3 days and nights in that room, the prophecy did not tell me which country. The prophet said, a far distant land. It is now that I processing and I have my visa that it dawned on me that the far distant land God was referring to was America. Was America. Uh, and so everything is processed. I officially resigned and started preparing to come in here. Now, as I mentioned on Monday, is that my point of contact for the addresses I provided were in New York. And so in my mind, I am thinking from Uganda, I'm going to New York, and then from New York, we'll figure out what is next. 3 weeks before I'm to travel, I had a dream. In the dream, this man in the dream, I believe it was an angel of the Lord, was saying to me that the Lord will have you go to Tulsa. And like to emphasize, that was the first time I'm hearing about this name. I had not read it up. I had not read about it anywhere. I had not heard it from anyone anywhere. It is the first time I'm hearing about it. And so what I did the following day in the morning when I went to the city, I went to one of the internet cafe, and at that time Google search had already come. So I entered the name to figure out where is this place. And sometimes even when you misspell the word, Google will help you and give you the correct spelling. So Google gave me the correct spelling. I clicked on it and exactly told me where Tulsa was. It was in Oklahoma in the US. So then I knew that God wants me to go to this place. But now the challenge was I do not know anyone in this city. And nobody, so I don't know anyone, and nobody knows me in that city. Again, going back to that prophecy, a far distant land where you do not know anyone and no one knows you. So I now know I know I'm going to America. I have a contact in New York. God is saying you're going to this city called Tulsa, but I don't know anyone. And I don't think anyone knows me. So I said, let me share with my pastor about this dream. And as I was sharing, he said, oh, yeah, the last time I was in the US, I spent 3 days in that city. So I know someone there. In fact, we even communicated yesterday. So if that's where the Lord is leading you, I will go ahead and give you their contact, and then you go from there. And so he gave me the phone number of this particular individual, and we started communicating. And as we continue to communicate, then I knew that I'm not even going to go to New York. I am going to go straight to Tulsa, from Uganda to Tulsa. And so I had to even change my booking because I had already booked my flight to New York. So I had to change all that from New York now directly to Tulsa. And the truth is, this individual, even though this individual was introduced to me through my pastor at the time, this individual did not know me, and I did not know this particular individual. The very first time we are meeting and seeing each other is when I landed and when this particular individual was picking me up from the airport. Was I afraid of where I'm going? Yes. Was I unsure what's going to happen to me? Yes. But I had the faith in God's guidance as these things were being revealed to me, as these things were happening. I had faith that all is going to be well. I'm looking at our time. It's 1:15, and I know some of
Man,
you are at work.
brother Patrick, you have no clue. I was shouting. I was like, "Whoa, let me tell you what we are doing. We started Genesis. I told you that this year we got to a point, I believe maybe February, March, where we got to the end of the Bible, Revelations, and so we started Genesis. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we've been reading about Jacob, and we've been seeing about Jacob receiving a dream, Jacob being directed to a far distant.
Yeah. Hello? Are you still there? Okay. Looks like it was cut off. Kevin, are you still there? So I will wait for Kevin to come back. So the my story, of course, continues from there. But for today, I am going to stop there with that story, with that testimony. And I am hoping that you hearing the passage I've read and the testimony that I've given is an encouragement to you that the Lord knows us. It's a confirmation that the Lord knows us. He has set us apart. And it's up to us to take those baby steps, like when the baby is learning how to walk. Sometimes that's what it takes. You take the first step and the rest begins to unfold as you walk, as you take those steps. Now, has it been smooth all the way? No. Just like Jeremiah, he had obstacles along the way, but he had this assurance from God that I will be with you. Don't be afraid of them. I will rescue you. He uses
Oh,
words. Yeah.
okay.
He
Oh,
uses,
sorry. I think my phone disconnected. Now, so what I was saying is we are around where Jacob went to a distant land. So this testimony of yours is so timely, so timely.
yeah.
Now, I just came back and I see there's somebody called Grace. Grace had, I think she had like 5 or 10 questions. So let her start, and then because there's things she wanted to ask. Go ahead.
Okay, let me finish up, but let me just make
Oh,
a
you finished
conclusion.
fast. Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, and then,
let me finish
okay,
up
you go
before
ahead.
we
Yeah,
wrap it.
yeah. Okay.
So, yeah,
Uh-huh.
so I am going to end m- I know like I've said, this testimony continues. But for the sake of time, I know some of you have to work, have to be somewhere. Even myself have to do something else. So, but for now, for today, we'll stop here. But let this testimony, with that of the scripture we read, prove or reaffirm and confirm to you that there is a God who knows us by name. He leads us, He guides us, He directs our footsteps. Sometimes, whether we know it or we don't know it, but He is guiding us. All you need to do as an individual is surrender to Him, give your life to Him, and He will take you step by step and He will direct you. And we'll continue from there next time I have an opportunity to share on this platform. Um, so I will definitely end here. So now let's open up in the next few minutes. Let's